Hey, Abraham Lincoln represented a slave owner, and it happened right here in central Illinois.
The story of the Matson slave trial comes back to the stage for a one-of-a-kind dinner theater event next week. It's a part of our local history and our story.
Renee Henry is the project coordinator, and Bill Thomas is the performance director and an actor in Lincoln's Trials and Tribulations. Because
Correct.
He has a lot more tribulations through this and only one trial. So that's a little bit about what the story is about. But welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the Matson trial, Renee.
It's about the 1847 Matson slave trial. It's the only time Lincoln represented a slave owner in his entire career. And it has puzzled historians for over 150 years about why would Lincoln, the great emancipator, have done this? And what wasn't he in favor of abolition and or freedom of the slaves, and wasn't he didn't have a choice? And so the trial's considered one of the top 10 trials in Lincoln's career, and we do a presentation of it and tell the story from lots of different viewpoints.
Which is really great. I said at the beginning of the show that I saw it last year. I loved it. It's great, and it's a whole dinner theater performance. So we're going to talk a little bit about that coming up too. So how does, Renee, how does the group handle the case? You actually do it through multiple voices.
We do. We cover all the various characters, get to tell their side of the story, and it turns out that Lincoln isn't the most interesting person in the story. The Bryant family, the ones that are trying to free themselves, are actually pretty interesting in themselves. Anthony was a free man. He could actually read, and yet his wife was enslaved and was the niece of Robert Matson, and had her 4 children that were involved in it as well. So
that's what drew me to the story. Was Lincoln was in it, but once you find out about the Bryant family, runaway slaves risking their lives, slavery in Illinois that people tolerated for years.
Right.
People turned a blind eye to it, and that really caught my interest. And you hear these people's stories, and it goes from there, and you get drawn into each character has their own little side of it. There's a couple of arguments that the guy gets into with Lincoln, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and you play Robert Matson. So what have you come to understand about him?
I have come to understand that Robert Matson is a businessman. Now, this is all about property rights. Now, you may think me a devil in this modern day and age, but at that time, it was more about property rights. Now, some folks might say that the heart was in it, and I'm a heartless man, but would a heartless man bring his family and his slave and allow a slave's own husband to come with her, all the way from Kentucky to Illinois? I tell you, I do not believe those are the actions of a heartless man. Do you? Of course not.
And that's what's interesting, is one of the many things that's interesting about this play is you have this nuance that's part of understanding how this all went down right here in central Illinois.
it is.
Right. The play is performed in the town where all this took place. This was just a farm not far from Newman. So this was slavery in Illinois, just down the road.
That is crazy to think about, and it's such an important year to mark as well.
Yes, it's the 150th anniversary of the end of the Civil War and the death of Abraham Lincoln. So it's kind of the time when we're thinking about the conflict that we had, this great conflict.
We're seeing Jane right here do a pretty important monologue, and people are going to hear a little bit of her voice in the background, but not the whole thing. Why is she such a pivotal character? And she's very articulate, very well spoken, and really tells a lot. So frame that for me a little.
She is an intelligent woman who is fighting for her children, and for, she says, God gave me these children, they're mine to take care of, and yet these people are trying to separate us, because that's what started them, that's what caused them to leave the farm after living on it for 2 years here in Illinois, is that they threatened to send the children down south and separate the family.
Another angle on Jane is that one of the children she has is by her free husband. But because she's a slave, the child is considered a slave. So everyone is at risk. And when someone threatens to send the children away, that's what sort of gets them going. And the husband, in the 2 years he's been up here, has been researching it, and he's probably had in the back of his head, how can I make this work? How can I? And he's learned enough. as he says in his monologue, that to make it happen.
We saw some pictures there because of people getting a tour, because this is more. I mean, you're getting the whole play and you're getting your little slice of history, but you got a lot more going on here.
We do. We give tours of the Hiram Rutherford house, and Dr. Rutherford was one of the abolitionists who helped the Bryant family, and his house was built the same year as the trial. And then we take people out to Independence Pioneer Village, and they're going to get a presentation there about how what life was like in Oakland. And then we serve them an 1847 meal, so they get to get a slice of history even with the
fresh.
meal.
It's not actually luckily. But yeah, there's a look at Pioneer Village. So, Bill, why will they want to come see this?
Because it's local, because there's family issues involved. And obviously, Abraham Lincoln's involved. It's Civil War dinner, which is awesome in itself. And the price is right, and all this can be done within a 4-hour period. You start at the Pioneer Village, go through the tour of the Rutherford House, other events, because this is a Lincoln, looking for Lincoln's signature event. Other events are happening around it in Charleston and Lerna, out the Lincoln Log Cabin. So.
All right. Well, we had all the information there for tickets and information, so thank you so much for coming in. Very interesting.